kids Quran, we talk about making them read, memorize. But there's the next level that is supposed to be the main purpose of the Quran, as we'll see, which is how do I reflect, contemplate, and understand what the Quran means to my day-to-day life. And so in the month of Ramadan, I pose a question to myself and to everybody here. Your idea of connecting with the book of Allah in the month of Ramadan, is it all about just quantity of recitation? Or is there an element of, I actually need to sit down and figure out what is Allah trying to tell me? Was the Quran sent to be recited? That's one aspect, 100%. But what is the first quality of the Quran is mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah? It's a guide. If you don't understand how to read and how to use the guide to direct you in life, then what's the point of it? If I have a Google Maps app in my phone and I decide to go from here to Sydney, long journey in life, it's very far. I have the guide with me, but I'm like, nah, I'm not going to use the guide, I'm just going to figure it out. No road maps, no signs, I'll just figure it out. Yeah, you've got the guide with you, but if you're not using it, what's the point? If you're not using it to guide you in your journey, what is the point? It's not supposed to be academia. It's not supposed to be just sit as an app in your phone. It's supposed to be used. The example of the Google Maps. And so the Quran, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will explain, is supposed to be a guide to your life. And if it is not, then you have limited this miracle that Allah sent as a final gift for humanity. So the first hal, the first living, dynamic experience state of the Quran is that it is hudan linnas. And if you've ever been to my talks, I talk specifically about the grammar of the Arabic language because that is the miracle of the Quran. Simply translated is, I keep saying that the word is guide, but hudan in Arabic means ultimate and absolute and the only guidance. The only guidance. Why is that important? Because you can get from here to Sydney via multiple pathways. Google Maps will take you toll-free. Google Maps will take you off-road, scenic road, Great Ocean Road, multiple pathways. But if you claim that there's only one way to get to Sydney, you have to prove it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the Quran is not just a guide for humanity. The Quran is the only guidance and there is no other guidance. That's important. It's important for you to have that sort of feeling of pride in receiving this gift. And when you accept that, you feel there's no need to be politically correct or feel I have this inferiority complex because I'm following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which unfortunately a lot of Muslims do these days. Because of the negative image that Muslims are being portrayed in the media that's crept into our psychology, and we have, whether we realize it or not, are somewhat of an inferiority complex. We try to be nice, we try to prove ourselves. Sometimes we're shy of saying that this is the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're shy about it. Yes, you can be smart about it, but deep down inside you shouldn't be shy and negative about it. You should be very proud that this is the only guidance for humanity. So there's a difference between guide and guidance. And the word that Allah uses in this verse about the month of Ramadan, about the Quran, it is the only guidance. Keep that very clear in your mind. And then the other miraculous part of this first hal is that this is guidance linnas. Did you hear the first letter that says li? Li in Arabic is grammatically defined as the lamb of benefits. The lamb of what? Benefits. Why is that important? Because whenever we try to connect with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we see the miracles that it has in it and that I want to apply it in my daily life, shaitan will come, your friends will come, society will come and tell you that this is not for your benefit. That coming closer to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make it harder for you to live. We can all testify that these kind of thoughts go in our minds. And so we start to battle. Is the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for my benefit? Or should I compromise and put it to the side to make my life easier, as thinking that easier is more for my benefit. Those are the psychological battles that happen inside of us every single day. These psychological battles are intensified when you don't realize the magnitude of the gift that you have. But when you have internalized that this is the only guidance, cemented, concrete, then you will have no doubt that the guidance in it is for my benefit. Whether your mind comprehends it or not, whether society approves of it or not, whether your friends agree with you or not. Because you know that this package is not just some influencer talking on social media telling you to do keto diet or to do the plant-based diet or this or that. There's only one guidance that's come from where? Not from down the road, not from Amazon, not from Alibaba, from the seventh heaven. From your Creator specifically for you. So it cannot be detrimental to you. It cannot be harmful to you. It cannot be a hurdle for you. It can only be linnas, for your benefit. And remember how I started this talk by talking about that Ramadan and our psychology just about Muslims? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse talks about Hudan lil mu'mineen or Hudan linnas. He says linnas, for all people, even though the verses were sent to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the believers. Meaning that the bigger picture of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that could be displayed in the month of Ramadan is that this is an opportunity for you Muslims to make the best da'wah in the month of Ramadan. Often in the month of Ramadan we were enclosed in our own families and our own communities. But in reality, the best month to do da'wah is the month of Ramadan. Why is that? We all love the idea and believe in the hadith that the shaitan is locked away in the month of Ramadan, correct? We can all feel it. We can all resonate with it. We can get up for Fajr early. We can pray early. We can recite Quran easily. We feel the shaitan is locked away. But is the shaitan locked away only for the Muslims? Shaitan is locked away from all human beings. And the biggest enemy and the biggest obstacle to somebody receiving the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the shaitan. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hudan linnas, all Muslims understand that this month is not just about you and being enclosed. It's about you spreading the message. It's about you spreading the message. And it often comes down to this quality that we've inherited from society where we've become all about ourselves in the month of Ramadan. And Muslims in essence are all about giving. Giving not just to your immediate family and the Muslim community, but spreading the message to people that really benefit from it. I mean, you could pray and fast the month of Ramadan and do extra Taraweeh and recite Quran. But if somebody becomes a Muslim because of your contribution, on the scale of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is better? Your efforts or someone becoming Muslim or receiving the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So you got to think about it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses the word linnas on purpose. The month of Ramadan needs to be something of benefit not just for the Muslims but for the wider community. And see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses and associates the words guidance with benefit. Guidance with benefit. There's a message for us who are in the sort of area of I need to be helping people get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or when I spread Islam. Whatever conversation you have about spreading the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's not of benefit to the other party, then you need to think twice. So if I see my friend not praying and I want to advise him, but I start yelling at them, is that of benefit to them? It's not. Yeah, what you're saying theoretically is good, but the way you're doing it is not of benefit. So that the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you're conveying it to your immediate family, to your wider community, or to the non-Muslim society, needs to be always linnas, for the benefit of people. So that's when you use your wisdom and, judge a situation. What's the best way that I could deliver a beneficial piece of information in that particular context? Not what I feel like. See the difference? Because the parameter of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, the guidance is for the benefit of people, not for your own personal gains, not so you can get the brownie points, for the benefit of people. So when you deliver this amana to your family, to your community, to the wider society, it needs to be with wisdom, so that at that particular moment, the people receiving the gift get some benefit. Crucial. Because when somebody sees that you are doing something for their benefit, they're more likely to take it. Correct? We're all human beings. If we see someone generally trying to help us with good manners and nice conduct, and we can see generally that they want to help us for our own benefit with no strings attached, naturally we're inclined to listen to them. But if you see somebody with an ego trying to force their opinion on top of you, even though what they say is gold, your heart's locked, not interested. Correct? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says specifically linnas, not by coincidence. So we've understood the first hal, hudan linnas. The next one is bayinatin min al-huda. I need you to switch on now because it's getting a bit more technical with the Arabic language. So when you convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's to reminding ourselves or reminding our fellow believers or to the wider community, some hearts are soft, and at the first sort of hearing of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will listen. But we all understand that not everybody is on the same sort of spot or time or placement in terms of their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not everybody is on the same spot. So some hearts are soft, some hearts are soft and hard, some hearts are very, very hard. Some hearts have no doubt, some hearts have a bit of doubt, some hearts have a lot of doubt. So hudan linnas will often open up the door with the soft of his hearts. But then we all realize that there are some people that are curious, some people need convincing, some people have questions and they want their questions answered, and that's natural for a human being. So what is the gift for them in terms of the Quran? The Quran is bayinatin min al-huda. Now, to explain that loaded phrase, the easiest way to say it is that hudan linnas is guidance for the benefit of people, and bayinatin min al-huda is there is clear proofs from within this guidance that this guidance is for the benefit of people. I repeat, bit too long? Clear proof from within the guidance that this guidance is for the benefit of people. So let's focus on this. Clear proof from within the guidance. Because human beings, we want to see evidence. That's natural. We are trying to commit to believing with certainty in the unseen. We want some proof. That's natural. All messengers before Prophet ﷺ came with miracles. That's natural. Because if I was to knock on your door tomorrow and say, hey brother, you need to follow my way, because if you don't, you're going to spend eternity in hell. And if you follow my way, you're going to be living in this paradise where you can get everything for free and whatever you wish for is for free. And your first impression is, this guy hasn't taken his meds today. That's your first impression. And if there's a bit of credibility about this human being because you know them for years and years and years, you might believe and you say, okay, I know you, you're trustworthy, you're an honest person, you're a person of integrity, but still what you're saying doesn't make sense. Give me some proof. And so all messengers that came with the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to prove their point, because there's a lot of people who want proof. Now, before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, messengers used to come with two separate things. Messengers used to come with a message, and separately they had the miracle. Understand this. Messengers used to come with a message, and separately was the miracle. So clearest example we have is Musa alayhi salam. He came with the commandments on one hand as such, but he had the miracles to prove I'm the message of God. So Musa, follow me. We know the miracles that happened. But they were separate. Those miracles were seen by the eye, by that first generation only. After that they became stories. Same with Christianity. Isa alayhi salam did miracles, but after that they became stories. Second generation, third generation, fourth generation never witnessed these miracles. Whereas with the Quran that's been sent by Allah, linnas, the Creator knows the psychology of the creation, wants proof. But we have no messenger alive, do we? We have no miracles in front of us performed by a human being. Where's the miracle? The miracle is within the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. So for the first time, the message and the miracle are one in the Quran. Very important to understand that the message and the miracle are one in the Quran. Now, is this exclusive to non-Muslims? No. We as Muslims, our iman is, let's all testify, it's not rocket high all the time. It goes through some big ups and downs. And naturally, as human beings, when our iman is down, we want something to pick it up. And there's nothing to pick it up than to come across something in the Quran that hits the spot bang on. Nothing like that. Just whew, put the charge back up to 100%. You know? We can hear a lecture and you can hear talks and this and that, and all it takes is just listening to the Quran wholeheartedly, and you feel it that, subhanallah, my iman has gone up. You read the explanation of the verses and the tadabbur, you go, subhanallah, I can take on life again. My iman is through the roof. So it's not exclusive just to non-Muslims who are looking for an argument. This is for me and you as well. That the bayinat are from within the Quran to, first of all, boost our iman constantly, and second of all, give proof to those that are needing proof. Is that clear? The other important quality about the word bayinatin min al-huda is that it is an inherent, inbuilt quality in the guidance. Inherent, inbuilt quality in the guidance. Meaning what? That the evidence or the proof doesn't come from the outside. Like I said, the message and the miracle are together. The proof for the message doesn't come from the outside of the guidance. It's within the guidance. Why is that important? Referring back to our unfortunate inferiority complex at the moment, in that we are all of a sudden very, very happy that science discoveries are matching what's written in the Quran. Yeah, the last 50 years, science has, alhamdulillah, proven for us that the Quran is real. What we don't realize is that that kind of thinking is going against this living quality of the Quran, because all of a sudden, whether we realize it or not, we are saying, oh, see, science is saying the same thing as the Quran, so the Quran must be truth. But the living, inherent, inbuilt quality of the Quran is that the evidence and the proof is in the guidance. It doesn't need science from the outside. Let me give you an example. The proof of the embryology verses in the hadith in the Quran only came in the last, 50, 100 years? What was the stance on these verses before the discovery of science? The stages of the creation of the human being in Surah Al-Mu'minun, were they not relevant to the time of Prophet ﷺ? Were they not a miracle before 100 years ago? They were. The problem is that if you rely on science to, oh, thank you so much science, you are proving that the Quran is correct. Science is just experiments done by human beings. They are setting the standards. So if these human beings come up with something different, what are we going to say? Oh, see? Quran is not real because science is different? So be aware of that. We don't need science to prove. Yes, it's alhamdulillah, it's great that the science is showing the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just proving the point. But it's proving the evidence that's already in there. We don't need to wait for science to tell us that. And the miracle of the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator, knows that human beings are like a spectrum. You know, some of them are scientific. Some of them are linguistic. Some of them are soft. Some of them are hard in nature. And so the Quran and the guidance and the proof tackles all these different elements of the humanity differently. There is verses about punishment and fear for those that are, driven by fear. There's verses about mercy and compassion for those that are driven by mercy and compassion. At the time of the Arabs, they were linguistic people. The linguistic side of the Quran won them over. Family structure, this and that. The Quran attacks, looks at all the different dimensions of the human beings. So maybe science has caught up and is sort of supporting one aspect, but there's so many other aspects. I'll give you an example that the science hasn't caught up, and I don't know if it'll ever catch up. In the Quran, a lot of the times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the qalb as having intellectual quality. قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. Now in Arabic, you're wondering, we all think because of science has told us that the brain is the only thinking part of the body, and that the heart is just a pump. So a lot of scientists before the 1990s struggled with that verse, because they've accepted that the heart is only a pump, and that there's no sort of thinking aspect associated with it. And then we all know about the miraculous gut feeling. You have a gut feeling about something. Hold on, feelings in the gut? There's acid and food in the gut. What's feelings got to do with your stomach? And then only up until from the 1990s onwards science has been showing slowly that there are nerve-like cells in the gut and in the heart that affect your feelings and your decision making, and it's a very novel new field. It's not even close to being fully discovered. So before the 1990, you could have struggled. If you didn't know that the Quran is the actual proof, you will struggle with this reality. Allah is saying that hearts have a feeling, but science is telling me that heart is just a pure pumping vessel. You understand? Can you see how problematic it is to rely on the outside to prove the Quran? The Quran has clear proof from within it. So there is the second hal of the Quran. What was the first one? What was it? Hudan linnas. Alhamdulillah. Everybody's still awake. I do understand that this is a bit different to what you expect for the month of Ramadan. But again, we want to expand our psychology and do something different to the usual. So it has a different flavor. Humanity doesn't like to repeat the same thing over and over and over. It loses flavor. Okay. The other amazing aspect about bayinatin min al-huda is that we're talking about the Quran as having clear proofs from within the guidance, and that it is the standard. Now, that's all very nice words that I'm saying, but how can I actually, justify what I'm saying? Because Quran that we have right in front of us are just words that are recited out loud. Yeah? And they have a meaning. So how can these words be so, unanimously, adamantly the only guidance? Because we know that with languages in humanity's history, languages change, correct? English that you speak now is not the English from 100 years ago. If 100 years ago you picked up the phone and you said, hey mate, I'm going to Facebook you, can you WhatsApp me, did you read my post on Twitter? They'll think you're cuckoo. The language has changed. You say, hey, you're cool, that means that you're cold. It's not because that means you're hipster. Languages change. Human beings interact, and languages and word have different meaning. So has the Arabic language not changed? Question. Has the Arabic language that's used by the awam, by the normal people, not changed? Yeah, it has changed. But has the Arabic of the Quran changed? No. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. And mubin, if you open up your ears, mubin is very similar word to bayinat. In essence, the Arabic of the Quran is the standard of the grammatical Arabic that never changes. What does that mean for me and you? Let's just say that everybody knows what a ruler is, yeah? A ruler is measuring a distance. Meters, centimeters. Somewhere in England or somewhere, there is the golden standard ruler that tells you what a meter is and what a centimeter is. That never changes. That is the benchmark standard that never changes. So a meter will be a meter and a centimeter will be a centimeter forever. The classical Arabic of the Quran is the standard that never changes in language. And that's why this revelation from Allah is bayinat min al-huda, because it is, let me explain this. It is clear. It is clear. It has no ambiguity. It's not like the translation of the Bible where it went from Aramaic to Greek to this to now in English, whether God is capital G or small g, or sun is the literal sun or the physical sun. There's no ambiguity in the Quran, because the bayinat are referring to the original standard of the language of the Arabs that never and will never change. And that's why we can say it is the only guidance. And that's why, look at this gathering. Look at the Muslim Ummah. More than 80% of the Muslim Ummah don't speak the Arabic language of the Arabs, but they preserve the original Mubayyin Arabi of the Quran. Miraculous. Miraculous. So you recite the Quran in the month of Ramadan, the Imams in the Somali Masjid, the Imams in the Indonesian Masjids, the Imams in whatever community masjid, they're all reciting the same Mubayyin Arabi Quran of the original standard Arabic. Doesn't change. That's why you can say this is bayinat min al-huda, because it's clear. Why is clarity so important? Why is clarity so important? Because if Quran is a guide for our life, yeah, we are saying that the Quran is a guide for our life. Life is complex. Is life simple? Life is very complex. Humans spend a lot of time and energy trying to make sense of this complex thing that we're living in, that is called life. And because they are searching for answers, they either find answers or they go miserable. And they go down a very dark path. So if the Quran is a guide for this complex problem, is the Quran and its message basit or clear? Basit means simple. Like 1 + 1 = 2. That's a simple math equation. But a very complex calculus equation to build up the software on the computer program is not a simple calculus equation. But the best teacher will make solving a complex problem very clear. The best teacher makes solving a complex problem very, very clear. Doesn't mean that the calculations are all of a sudden become just simple. So the miracle of the Quran is that it addresses this complex thing that we have that's called life, and it gives you clarity about it. It doesn't say that life is all of a sudden going to become easy. Yeah, make the clear distinction that because it's clear, it gives you clarity about this complex life that we're living. And people spend so much time and energy trying to make sense of this complex problem, because that's us as human beings. We're trying to make sense of what we're doing. But life is complex. So it's a mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this complex test that we're living in clear. Not simple, clear. The other, in Surah Al-Qamar, you might say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ, that Allah has made Quran easy for remembrance. Yeah, for remembrance, for dhikr, for getting reward, yes. But to solve life's problems, me and you understand that just reciting the Quran without understanding what it means is not enough. To get the guidance out of it, we need to dig a bit deeper. And when we dig a bit deeper and find the road from A to B as Allah wants it, that long complex journey becomes clear. Doesn't make it shorter, doesn't take away the ups and downs, but it makes it clear. And that's the miracle in Bayinat min al-Huda, is that the Arabic is lisan and Arabiyyun mubin. It's the original text that makes life's very complex situations clear to understand and handle from within this guidance. Subhanallah. All of that is captured in Bayinatin min al-Huda. How am I going for time? I'm not going to get through 8 points. No way. We have to book another time for the second half of this. Okay. So what was the first hal? Fish and chips? Next week, you have to refrain, you know? Your mind has to find that. First hal was hudan linnas. Second one is bayinatin min al-huda. I'll share the recording with Brother Arif if anybody wants to refer this very complex talk, because it is deep, it is meaty, but it's important to understand. And the third one is Al-Furqan, and this is just amazing. So Al-Furqan in Arabic, Furqan is a very, very popular word in the Arabic language through all the Muslim communities. A lot of boys are named Furqan. We use it a lot. And Furqan is derived from the Arabic word farq, which is to sort of separate very clearly two separate things. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains that the process of Musa alayhi salam hitting the staff and then the Red Sea separating is فَانْفَلَقَ فَكَانَ كُلُّ فِرْقٍ from Furqan كَالطَّوْدِ الْعَظِيمِ. To separate very clearly is what the word Furqan means. But when you put in Arabic alif and lam in front of a word, it gives it extra oomph. So I could say, I am bulky. But if I put alif and lam, I am the bulky guy. No one is bulkier than me, or no one is musclier than me, and no one is smarter than me. The smart guy, the intelligent guy. When you put the in English, it adds bigger quality to that word. In Arabic, it's even more. When you put alif and lam in front of a quality, it makes it absolute. So what does that mean about the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? In a nutshell, it means that the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate absolute separator. Absolute separator of what? Of many things. Like we said, life is a complex issue. So we have a lot of doubts in life. We have a lot of grey areas in life. We have a lot of decisions in life. A lot of directions we need to choose. And we don't know which ones to go for. We don't know. Complex. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the guidance, and that clarity gives you the ability to separate. I'm not going down this path, I'm going down that path. It's not that I'm going down that path, oh, and I missed that path. No. Total separation. 100% I'm going down the path of Al-Furqan. Why is that important? This is important on so many different levels. Psychologically, for us as human beings, we need to have clarity about the decisions we make. Correct? Being unable to make a decision, we all can attest and testify that is paralyzing. When you can't make a decision and you have options and directions, and in your mind, if the shaitan is telling you this, and my culture is telling you this, and my friend is telling me this, and Allah is telling me this, which one do I choose? You need something to be decisive about it. So the quality of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that it's not just an option for you. It is supposed to be the total separator. If this is what Allah wants, everything else is to the side. Shaitan will tell you that no. Don't choose that. Choose something else because it's of benefit for you. Or don't choose that now, choose that later because it's of benefit for you. Remember, when shaitan does that, remember the lamb of benefit. Hudan li. Remember the lamb of benefit. Having the quality of the Furqan in your life is for your benefit. Having the quality of the Furqan in your life to make clear decisions, cutthroat decisions about which way to go, even if you have doubt, is linnas. Al-Furqan is linnas. The ultimate separation quality of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for the benefit of people. 100%. No doubt about it. And this is so important for us when we live in a non-Muslim world, because here's Brother Bakr talking, saying this, and here's the Imam and Jum'ah saying this, and then we go out in life and we see everybody making decisions differently. Yeah? Everybody making decisions about friends and family and recreation and making money and where to live differently. And you can't help but sometimes get affected. And you want some sort of filter to just separate all that rubbish from going into your mind. And that filter, that separator is Al-Furqan. And that's why the month of Ramadan is, first and foremost, about celebrating receiving the revelation of the Quran. Fasting is how you celebrate receiving the revelation. But if you do not connect with the book of Allah at this deep level, you're not going to be able to understand that it is the guidance. And if you want some proof to charge you, you'll not be able to understand the bayinat. And if you have decisions to make, you'll not be able to have the quality of the Al-Furqan in your day-to-day life. That's why Ramadan is called the month of the Quran, because of that. Because without it, really, fasting is just abstaining from food and drink. Haven't you heard Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that there are people who fast and all they get from their fasting is the hunger and the thirst? Haven't you heard that hadith? Haven't you heard the hadith where Prophet ﷺ has said there are people who pray at night and all they get from their praying at night is the fatigue from standing up? Why? Why is that? You've done the deed. Haven't you done the deed? You've done the deed. But the next level that the deed is supposed to do is not happening. You're not intaking the purpose of this month of Ramadan, which is the guidance of the Quran. And we talk about it over and over. If a Muslim is not connecting to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is actually guiding you? Not theoretically, not culturally, you one-on-one individually with the book of Allah every day. Trying to find the Hudan Linnas, trying to find the Bayinat, trying to find the Al-Furqan. If you're not, what is actually the Furqan in your life? And that's what happens. People are Muslims, but Al-Furqan in their life is something else. The decision maker in their life is something else. The proof for their decision, the Bayinat, is something else. That's why the month of Ramadan is first and foremost about the Quran. Another side, but very, very important aspect about why the word Al-Furqan is used. We talked about clarity, about bayinat, correct? When you talk about practically what the Quran is in terms for us, it is words that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ recited. Correct? You know, we didn't receive a book from the seventh heaven via rope. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ recited these words. So, how do we know? How do we know that the words that came out of the mouth of Prophet ﷺ, which one is Quran and which one is Hadith? How do you know? Important question, because if you're a non-Muslim and he told them that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us the Quran and told us the Hadith, the first question is, how do you know which is which? How do you know which is which? See, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they have the quality of the Furqan. When Prophet ﷺ spoke, immediately there was no doubt that what he was saying at a particular point, people knew what Quran was and people knew what Hadith was. Immediately. Because the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have that inherent quality of Al-Furqan. They have it. So there was no doubt about which one is Quran and which one is Hadith. And that is so paramount to comprehend, because if you pick up the Jewish tradition, the explaining or the writing in the Torah in modern day times, and if you read it, you don't know which part of the lines that you're reading is verses, and which one is tafsir, between brackets. It's all shambled together. There's no separation between the two. And when there's no separation, there's no clarity. And when there's no clarity, people don't know which is guidance and which is not. So it is so miraculous that Allah uses the word Al-Furqan here, because without that clarity about what is Quran and what is Hadith, we'll be in trouble. Like the previous nations were in trouble, because they didn't have that separation and they allowed their books to be corrupted. But that's a story for another time. So Al-Furqan linguistically, it gives you that peace of mind that there is no doubt in my mind that this is 100% the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran. And from the same mouth we know exactly 100% which words are the Hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that gives you peace of mind, because ambiguity leads to misery deep down inside. You ask any Christian about their problems and there's ambiguity. There's no clarity about the basis of their faith. We have no ambiguity. We have clear Furqan, very, very clear sort of defined parameters. This is Quran, this is Hadith, this is Sunnah, this is this is that. No ambiguity. And that gives you a huge peace of mind. Another amazing example is that You know how we said بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى, we don't need science to prove it. But now, science has done, non-Muslim science has done a study on the speech pattern of the Quran and the speech pattern of the Hadith. And non-Muslim speech pattern linguistics tell you 100% that this style is 100% different to this style, even though it came from the same mouth. SubhanAllah. We don't need science to prove that to us, but this is something on the side to give you and when these scientists do that, you know, as a non-Muslim, when you see that, you go, you must think, where did these words come from? I mean, the people of Quraysh knew Prophet Muhammad ﷺ for 40 years. He lived with them, he traded with them, he was one of their locals, so he knew how he speaks. If I was to sit here now and start speaking to you in Shakespearean English, you go, hold on, Brother Bakr, we know you Kiwi, you say fish and chips. Where did that come from? Yeah, it's your mouth saying these words, but those are not your words. This is someone else's words. Immediately as humans we know. And then you say, okay, this guy is quoting someone. It's not him saying this. So when Prophet ﷺ spoke with the language or the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was so clear, it had the quality of the Furqan. And in that clarity, there's a mercy for all of us. Why is that important? Why is that important? Because we have a modern day phenomena that has been unfortunately creeping into the Muslim psychology as a result of non-Muslim interference, that the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really belongs in the 14th century desert of Arabia. That some of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we'll be talking about for the last 50 minutes, how it's miraculous for the benefit of humanity, is not applicable for modern day times. You hear that rhetoric all the time, and there's beautiful terms that have been coined by the shaitan that is running through the language and the mouths of people where they say modern Muslim. Yeah? What is a modern Muslim? I don't know. That certain aspects of Islam, like hijab or like praying, is a backwards thing. Why is it backwards? Now, they can claim whatever they want to claim. You know, the fight for the minds of Muslims have been happening since day one of revelation. It's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. But for me and you, if we don't understand that this Furqan is forever Al-Furqan, we're in trouble. If you don't understand that from the time that the Quran came down is the separator between whatever guidance claims are out there and the only guidance, you're in trouble. Because you're going to start believing this stuff. If you don't have the mental filters to block out all that rubbish, you start to believe it. You might think, yeah, I'll compromise on an element of my wife's hijab to fit the modern day fashions, or I'll compromise on an element of this in my life, or that in my life, or this element in my trading, or that element in my dealings, just so that it fits and I become, you know, modernized. Between brackets. I hate that word. I hate that word, modernized. There's nothing modern about it. The only modern thing is the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for humanity. But if you do not understand that this guidance is clear separation between everything else, there's murkiness in there. You're in trouble. You're in trouble. All of what we're saying in the last 60 minutes now is just شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس بينات من الهدى والفرقان. Now the verse carries on, and I don't want to go more than 60 minutes. I mean, I was aiming for 50, it's 60 now, so I better stop. But to summarize, what are we celebrating in the month of Ramadan? أنزل فيه القرآن, first and foremost. So in your psychology, takeaway point number 1 from today is Ramadan, before it's about fasting, it's about you to review your connection with the Quran. You review your connection with this revelation. This revelation that has 3 living dynamic experiences that you need to experience. The only guidance. So the question for me and you is, if the Quran is saying blatantly and 100% in your face, it is the only guidance, the question for me and you is, what is actually guiding my day-to-day decisions? And then if you go through life and you have a struggle with some aspects of the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you want proof sort of to put your mind at ease, to put your heart at ease, and that's something normal, then there is proof from within the guidance for you. I'm not going to go look outside at some, non-Muslim author that's written Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best, most influential person in humanity, and I'm happy. No, I'm going to look for the proof from within the guidance. And then after that, if I still have elements in my life about decisions to make, and there's grayness and there's doubt, I need to have certainty that because of this inherent inbuilt quality of Al-Furqan, that is linnas, for my benefit, then I'm at peace. And if you take that every day with your relationship with the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wallahi, you will live a life that is so at peace. As people feel miserable when there's doubt and there's grayness and there's ambiguity and they don't have answers to their questions. But if you apply this in your psychology from the Quran, then there's clarity, there's peace of mind. And what is the miracle of the Quran? ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. With the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this deep dimension, your heart becomes at peace. Ask any revert, what is the biggest gain that drew them to Islam? Their hearts was not at peace. There was no contentment in their life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reconnect with His amazing revelation that is a gift for us, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done His bit, it's now up to us. And when we reconnect, you will see the benefits. That's something that I will say, that's something you have to experience. Jazakumullah khairan. I better stop. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. We have some time for a Q&A. Otherwise, then the food is smelling very good.
Jazakallah khair for Br Bakr for the talk. Mashallah, mind-boggling. So as Brother Bakr said, so we have time for question and answers. So if brothers or sisters have any questions.
Questions can be specifically about this topic or something general about Ramadan. I'm not denying that I've put aside a lot of aspects about the month of Ramadan, so we'll answer to the best of our abilities. The food smells too good.
Or maybe the talk is too deep and to make us.
If no one has got questions, I've got one practical thing I want to sort of highlight. Anybody got questions? Is that this for people living in Melbourne? You got a question? Okay.
For beginners, where would you start? Like a specific surah to get that deeper understanding of the Quran? Because just thinking about the whole Quran, it's quite overwhelming.
Fair enough.
To try and go deep. So
start with the shortest ones.
Okay.
Start with the shortest ones.
Okay.
We are supposed to have the conclusion of قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِالْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. In this masjid, we've done the first two. Inshallah, we'll do the third one.
Okay.
But in talking about قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, we needed hours.
Okay.
قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِالْفَلَقِ, we needed hours. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, we needed hours. And the important thing to understand with your journey with the Quran is that it is a journey. It is not it's not like the parameters of this world where I need to find an end point and aim for that.
Okay.
It's not like that. The miracle of the Quran is that, you might have the blessing to go through it from A to Z in a tadabbur reflective way. And then you go back again and you'll find new meanings.
Okay.
So the whole idea is not to send an end point. The whole idea is to start and continue. As-sirat, to stay on the path of always connecting with the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And start with the surahs that you are using every day. So everybody's got their own sort of unique 1-2 package that they pray with, whether it's قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ or وَالْعَصْرُ وَإِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرُ, and the ones that you do all the time, that will be the wise ones to start with, because you are using them every day, and it will be nice to know what you're reciting. And then from there, step by step. It's not necessarily the length of the surah. You got to think of the Quran as one verse or one passage at a time. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
Jazakallah, Brother Bakr. This very, very good tawsiyah, khutbah. Especially I like the part where first time I ever heard that the language style of the hadith is quite different than the Quran.
Yes.
So with regards to reconnecting to the Quran, when we are in the month of Ramadan, we try to finish the whole Quran from page 1 to the end, right? Because please do correct me if I'm wrong, the rewards is just one letter itself contains 10 rewards, right, during the month. But reconnecting the Quran, you also mentioned that actually it's the meaning itself, remembering what it means, what the separation, the Furqan, the evidence in the guidance. So which one we should prioritize? Is it finishing the whole Quran or really understanding the meaning and then absorbing it and reflecting it?
Yeah, true.
There's just one question. I have another question, please.
Well, what's the second one? Maybe
The
we
second
can
one is
tackle two birds with one stone.
Al-Furqan. It's interesting when you said about Al-Furqan being the separator, right? The clear separator. But then again, if I remember, there is the surah in ayat in Quran saying that there is also ayat that is muhkamat and mutashabihat. So can you please clarify on that? Why is there mutashabihat within the Quran itself when it is supposed to be a clear separation between different things, the right and wrong, what you need to do, what you cannot do, and stuff like that?
Okay. So the first question is about priority.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to be upsetting a lot of feathers when I say this, but I believe in what I say 100% based on the painful experience of living in the non-Muslim world spiritually. So there is no doubt about the quantity being rewarded mathematically. The traditions that we've inherited about what to do in the month of Ramadan have all come from a generation of people who are connected with the Quran all year round. You can say that the traditions that we've inherited have been set by people who are at least masters or PhD in terms of their connection with the Quran all year round. So the people who focused on quantity during the month of Ramadan, throughout the year, they had a connection. And so the scholars that talk about the benefit of the quantity, they will say that we stop the halaqat of the Quran, we will stop the tadabbur circles and focus on quantity. Okay, so these people all year round, they've got a very, very active, dynamic, proactive relationship with the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's face it, we don't. Their masters at PhD level, at best our connection with the Quran, let's say it, let's be honest, I'm talking to myself here, is primary school level. When you're living in a non-Muslim world, because life is not based about an Islamic way of life. Everybody struggles to find time to fit in these things. So it comes down to the basics of the priority. Was the Quran sent just to be recited, or was the Quran sent to be recited, understood, contemplated, and applied? Which one of the two? Recited, contemplated, understood, and applied. Correct? Al-Quranu is hudan linnas. The recitation mathematical reward is amazing spiritually. But does it just following that approach 100%, have you seen it reflect to practical change in your life or not? Have you seen it? You know, people year after year are on autopilot when it comes to what we do in Ramadan, not realizing that that month is the only month where the shaitan's bombardment on our hearts is removed. So the best opportunity to actually sit down and reflect and contemplate is in the month of Ramadan. Taraweeh is qiyam. I'm going to the basics and challenging the norm. Taraweeh is qiyam. Qiyam is sunnah. We see people focus on Taraweeh and ignore the obligatory thing of Isha and Jama'ah and Fajr and Jama'ah. Big problem. Allah sent Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to show us the priority and the hierarchy of how He wants us to worship Him according to how He wants things, not how we feel like it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says through the Hadith Qudsi that my slave does not come close to me than what I've made obligatory upon him. Correct? No one can deny that. So before you worry about Taraweeh and this and iftaris and that, Allah wants the basics done properly. The basics in Ramadan. There's no magical formula. You got to do the basics well and then improve. The basics of the prayer is the 5 daily prayers on time in Jama'ah if you can in a non-Muslim country. It's very difficult, at best as you can. The basics in terms of your relationship with the Quran is that if you don't have a relationship all year round, and then all of a sudden you're going to go, I'm going to do a khatma in the month of Ramadan, and you walk away with nothing understood, reflected and contemplated, is that the purpose of the Quran? Is it? It's hard to say because it's challenging the norm, but that's not the purpose of the Quran. Yes, you got the reward, no doubt about it. You got the barakah, but it has not gone to the main purpose, which is, I want to have the Quran guiding my everyday life. The teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the teachings of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It needs for you to sit down. Like I said, the deen is not simple, it's clear, but it requires effort, it requires reflection, it requires contemplation. It means that you need to sit down and reflect and contemplate. It's not supposed to be numbers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Tabarak, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أكثر عملا أو أحسن عملا. For those who understand it, أكثر or أحسن. أحسن. Quality over quantity. You see in the Sunnah so many times that Prophet ﷺ says 2 rak'at done with khushu' has got a huge impact in terms of reward. Meaning that what? You can sit there and pray 20 taraweeh, but if nothing is changing, I question whether you've achieved the purpose or not. And why is that so important this year specifically? Because we're talking about Ramadan in Melbourne 2025, is because for the first time in a long time, Ramadan is going to be in summer. The days are long and the night is short. And so we don't have the luxury of, I'm going to not work the next day. Everybody's got to rock up to work or rock up to school. But the night before, if you're praying Taraweeh till 12 o'clock and you're sitting chitty-chatting, you might miss Fajr the next morning. What's more important? Is your productivity during the day in a non-Muslim environment, when non-Muslims see you lethargic and fatigued and portraying a miserable picture because you're fasting, what would they think about Ramadan? It's torture. And we just talked about that the Quran is hudan linnas. So if you display through smart prioritization that the basics are the most important thing, if I have a weekend the next day I might say for late Taraweeh, I need to connect with the Book of Allah, not just on a recitational level of numbers, but on a guidance level, because we just think we recite, month of Ramadan comes, Quran goes on the shelf, see you in 12 months. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how it's supposed to be. So khairul a'mali, as Prophet ﷺ, adwamuha wa inqal. If Ramadan is training, challenge the norm. I say challenge the norm because your benchmark is not the culture. Your benchmark is not what everybody's doing. Your benchmark is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prioritized. Allah wants you to connect with the Quran all year round. And in the month of Ramadan, you mean to set a standard about how you're going to connect. Yeah? So if the connection with the Quran is about guidance, alhamdulillah, shaitan is not there to distract me and give me excuses. I'm going to set a plan how I'm going to start connecting with the Quran. And that plan needs to be maintained after the month of Ramadan. So your plan is not just a Ramadan plan. Your plan is Ramadan is the start to what I'm going to do all year round. That gives you more clarity about what you're going to do. But if you just say, that's it, Ramadan, 1 to 30, kept, that's not supposed to be like that. So this year in Melbourne, you got to think differently about the priorities of everyday fasting and the connection with the Book of Allah. How am I going to get the most of it? Because whether we like it or not, the dynamics are different. There's going to be 14 and a half hours of fasting, very limited time to pray at night in terms of socializing and so on and so on and so on. You can't ignore the fact that as a human being you need to sleep. Yeah? What you display in front of the non-Muslims in terms of your behavior is reflective upon, is this really hudan linnas or not? If you're grumpy and miserable and snappy with your non-Muslim colleagues because you stayed up all night chatting after Taraweeh because Ramadan is socializing experience, you got a problem. You got a problem. Said prioritization is the second step, and the first step is discipline. First step is discipline. You got to be disciplined. You got to be disciplined. And this year even more than ever. That's the first question. Is there answers it? The answers it? The answers. The second one is فيه he said mutashabihat. The mutashabihat there is referring to the lack of clarity in previous scriptures. The mutashabihat is referring to the reality that some verses sound similar in the Quran, but when you achieve the journey of reflection and contemplation, even though some verses are similar, but they're not exactly the same, there's a different meaning. There's clarity. But that clarity is not clear to somebody who has not sat down and investigated it. The clarity is there, and you will see the difference, and that there's no ambiguity and there's no contradictions when you sit down and reflect and contemplate 100%. I don't have the time to explain the whole subtopic of mutashabihat and how it is not. The word mutashabih means similar, and similar could mean, there's confusion because of similarity. No. There's no confusion because of the similarities. The Arabic language is mubayyina, and every verse in the Quran is very specific, with a very specific context and a very specific meaning, because it's Al-Furqan, because it's clear, mubayyinat, no doubt, no ambiguity. But it needs the time and the effort. It needs the time and the effort. And I'll finish off with that if there's no other questions, that you got to be very, very careful of the inherited mindset of quick solutions that you inherit from living in a non-Muslim world and modern day life. And that's driven by people just thinking of this world, is driven by the device culture, where you basically, your brain is now being conditioned, I don't want to put effort to find solutions. I want quick solutions. It's in our nature, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا, but now it's been hastened by the modern day life. You got to be wary of that. It's an enemy for you to becoming a good Muslim, to be honest. This hastiness to find quick solutions. This lack of discipline and lack of long vision. Quran was revealed over 23 years, correct? Couldn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal it overnight? No, He could have. But Allah knows the nature of human beings. Human beings, to change something long term, require effort, consistent, long term. If we have the chance to talk about the month of Ramadan, first the latter part of the verse highlights this principle of humanity that Allah has given to us. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ. He says clearly in this verse, you must complete the count. تُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ, you must complete and perfect the count. Why is Allah emphasizing that I need to stay disciplined for 30 days or 29 days? Why? He could have done 2, 3, 4, 10, 15. We all can testify that internally we're excited about the month of Ramadan when it starts. But the feeling that you really, really gain doesn't happen in day 10 or day 15. You start to feel it at the end. Once you've gone through the rigorous part. So you need to go through the rigorous part of life. You need to go through discipline. You need to sort of not suffer but persevere in order to get benefit. That applies in every avenue of life, and the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is no different. So when He teaches you to fast continuously, there's a message. Human being, you're not going to get change overnight. There is no kun fayakun for us in this world. There isn't. We make dua, we want kun fayakun. We love the quick service. Yeah? We love to place orders with our dua and hoping that it's going to come within 24 hours express. That's what we do. That's a human nature, but the reality is very different. The reality is very, very different. And it's miraculous that fasting teaches you that discipline, that perseverance, continuity in order to get long-term benefits. Short-term benefits, good luck. Anybody chasing short-term gains quickly, good luck. We all know that. Take shortcuts in life, you're bound to fail. Correct? In all aspects of life. You take shortcuts, you're going to fail. You persevere and do the right thing long term, you'll succeed. And that summarizes the human journey in this world. You want quick love, quick fun, quick parties here and there, quick success to money, quick this, quick that. Fine, have it. What are you doing in the long term? You're setting yourself up for doom and gloom in the hereafter. You persevere, you have discipline, you say, no, yeah, I know there's sweetness with quick success, but the bigger sweetness is by long-term perseverance and discipline. The bigger success. Linnas, the bigger long-term benefits. Not the short-term benefit, long-term benefit comes with that, the discipline that comes with fasting. So please consciously plan your day, and that's Ramadan, and everybody's context is different. I'm not going to script the formula for everybody because you know your work, you know your family, you know your working hours, you know your context. Don't feel pressured that you must meet the KPIs of the culture. Meet the KPIs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what matters. You're going to stand alone on the Day of Judgment. Ain't nobody going to stand up for you on the Day of Judgment. We all know that. You're standing alone or with a group of boys or a group of sisters on the Day of Judgment. You're standing by yourself. So start preparing for that reality. All these fake KPI parameters that we must meet in the month of Ramadan, you're not pressured to do it. What you're pressured to do is to meet the parameters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the guidance of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. You want to have a bit of fun, you want to socialize in Ramadan? Sure. But not at the expense of the priorities. Please. Because this opportunity doesn't come that often. Who knows if we're here next Ramadan? Who knows? Who knows? A lot of people are not going to be present this Ramadan. They were with us last Ramadan. Yeah, that's why the Muslim is just, once they start to see the bigger long-term picture, your mindset just changes totally. Totally. And it's a bigger challenge for us living in a non-Muslim world. So I better stop because I can keep going forever about this. I'm very passionate about this. Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah, okay. Jazakumullah khairan kathiran for everybody to participate with the questions. And thanks, Brother Bakr, for the answers as well. So I think we will end it there because Brother has to go as well. But just before we end, no, okay. Okay, I think that will be it then. After this will be dinner before we pray Maghrib in Jama'ah. So thank you again for everyone. So we'll end the gathering with the doa kafaratul majlis. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.